we can get started. So today we are doing our individual stir fry with rice demo. So what I would recommend, although it doesn't say it in the recipe, I would recommend starting with the rice. Do you have a question? No? Oh, okay, I thought you did. So with the rice, you are going to be using what we call minute rice. And it's an excellent rice to use if you want it to be cooked really quickly, and it's really, really simple. So all you're going to do is you're going to take your smallest pot, okay, and you're going to grab your liquid measuring cup, and you're going to measure out just 1/3 cup of water. Okay, if you're making this for a family, you'll probably do at least a cup or 1.5 cups, sometimes 2 cups. But because this is an individual stir fry, we're not making a lot, so we're just going to do 1/3 cup. So we're going to fill it up with some water, and then always check it at eye level. So I'm a little over, still a little bit. Okay, perfect. You're going to pour it in your pot, okay, with just a little swish of vegetable oil. Okay, that helps to prevent the rice from sticking. And then the other thing that you need is some salt. So where's my salt? Right here. So this provides some extra flavoring. So you're just going to put maybe a couple little pinches of salt in your rice. Okay, so I'm going to put this on my small burner here and put the lid on. Okay, and I'm going to put it on high. So while I'm cutting up my vegetables, etc., this water will start to boil. Then I can add my 1/3 cup of rice. I'm going to add it to the pot, stir it, put the lid back on, and take it off the heat. And then you just let it sit for a few minutes, about 5-10 minutes. It absorbs all of the moisture, and then you stir it, and you should be good to go. Okay, so that's why it's nice and easy. So I'm going to let that sit over here while I get my vegetables prepared. So this is your first lab that you're going to be using knives. Okay, so you will all need to make sure you get your cutting boards out. We have both wooden and plastic cutting boards. For vegetables, you can use either. Okay, it's just with meat that you don't want to use the wooden cutting boards, right? Because the wood absorbs the juices from the meat. Okay, I have some damp paper towel underneath so that my cutting board does not slip and slide. It's nice and stable. Okay, and then I'm going to get started with my recipe. So I'm going to wash my hands to start, as always. Have my hair up, apron on. Ooh, that's hot. Okay, so the awesome thing about a stir fry is I have listed some ingredients that we're going to use, and there's some extra ideas that if you guys were making this at home, you could add in or take away different ingredients depending on your preferences. So today I'm going to be using carrots, onions, frozen broccoli, corn and peas, peppers, ginger, and garlic. When I do this at home and on the recipe it says to use celery, but we didn't get celery just because of timing's sake. So you guys can add celery, you could add mushrooms, zucchini, eggplant. There's a ton of different ideas of things that you could add. You can also get sometimes those frozen bags of mixed, they call them mixed Asian vegetables, I believe. Those are excellent to use for stir fries too. I have them at home. It has like sugar snap peas in it and those little mini corn. So there's lots of options to kind of play with depending on your preferences. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my carrot. I've got my garbage bin over here. I'm going to peel my carrot into the garbage. If you don't feel safe enough, you think you're going to drop your carrot into the garbage can, then obviously you can do it over your cutting board. But I swear I peel carrots almost every day of my life. So I feel confident. Okay, and then I'm going to give it a little rinse, okay, just to make sure that it is nice and clean. And ta-da, my water is already boiling for my rice. So I'm going to turn the heat off, take the lid off, and grab my, I think it's over, no, that's 1/4 cup. I need my 1/3 cup measure. Don't do it over the pot because you'll probably spill everywhere. And this one has to be fairly accurate measurement, because if you have too much, then you won't have enough water. Okay, give that a little mix with a wooden spoon. Okay, and then I'm just going to get it set aside. Put the lid back on though. Make sure you always put the lid back on, and I've taken it off the heat. So there, you're pretty much done. Look how fast that rice was. It takes a little bit longer when you make a little bit more, but because we're only making 1/3 of a cup, it's really fast. Okay, I've got my carrot peeled. Next, I'm going to take out my chef's knife. Okay, we are all going to be using our chef's knives, okay, for this recipe. You're not going to be using your paring knife to cut things except for peeling your ginger. Okay, so for the knife, if you want to try the sharpening, you can. If you don't feel comfortable, don't worry about it. But remember, you just pinch the blade, okay, hold your steel, okay, and just at about a 45-degree angle, just run it over a couple of times. Okay, just like that. And then I like to kind of just wipe off that extra on the edge. Okay, so for my carrot, it says peel it and cut it into rounds. So I'm just going to cut off the top and the bottom. Okay, throw those out. And then pinching my blade, okay, you don't want to hold your knife like this. Okay, this makes it really wobbly. If you pinch the blade, it becomes basically an extension of your arm. So I've got a nice small carrot here. So I'm going to just keep it as is and just cut it into little rounds. So you want to do it fairly thin, not like paper thin, but I'd say maybe 3 or 4 millimeters, maybe a little bit less than 1/2 centimeter thick, because the carrot will take the longest to cook. So if we cut it too big, then it will still be fairly raw. Okay, so you just hold it at the one end and slice it all the way. And then once you get it close to the end, okay, then we're going to do the claw technique. Okay, the claw technique is where you hold your left hand, the one without the knife, make it into a claw, and make sure that the tips of your fingers and your thumb are pointed inwards. Okay, you're not going to hold it like this. Okay, holding it like this means you're going to chop off the tips of your fingers. Holding it like this means the tips of your fingers are inwards. Okay, and then you're going to follow basically this flat part, okay, of your finger to help guide. So I just put the tip of my knife down. Yeah, tip of my knife down, and just carefully slice to the end. If you're not comfortable once it gets to the very end, okay, that's fine. You can have a bit of a bigger chunk. Okay, I have a little bowl here that I'm going to put all of my finished vegetables in so that I always have a clean cutting board. That is something I'd like to see you guys work on today, is having a clean cutting board. Okay, next thing I need is an onion. So we're going to use about 1/2 an onion. Okay, so I'm just going to cut it in half. You guys will get 1/2 on your trays tomorrow. I will lay it all out for you already. You want to take off the outer skin. So what you can just do is cut off a little bit of the top and a little bit of the bottom first, and then it makes it easier to just peel off that top layer, making sure you get any of this papery thin stuff. It's very slippery if you try to cut it with that on it. Okay, and then I'm going to show you how to dice. So I've left the little kind of part of the onion that's attached at the bottom, okay, where kind of it grows from the root. Okay, you want to keep that intact, and then we're basically going to be cutting it this way, okay, and then this way. And that creates a very simple dice. Okay, so I'll show you that. So here is the little root. I'm going to put it like so, okay, to the left. And I'm going to just slice almost all the way through the onion, but not through that root. Just little slices. Oops, that part fell out. Okay, so that basically you have these kind of tall, thin pieces. Get off. Okay, and then I'm going to cut it this direction. Okay, and that creates a very simple dice. So keeping my fingers into that claw, I'm going to just rock it through that onion. Okay, if it starts to slip apart a little bit, that's fine. You can just work with what you got. Okay, like so. And then once you get to the end where the root was, you can just toss that extra little bit. Okay, not running my blade along, or my finger along the blade. I'm just kind of pulling it off of here. And I'm going to take my onion now that is nice and diced, okay, in nice little pieces. And I'm going to put it in with the carrot. Again, always keeping my cutting board nice and clean. I like to use my knife kind of as a like a scooper. And I give it a bit of a rinse because it has some of that papery skin on it. Okay, next we have our frozen broccoli florets. So you can use fresh broccoli, but for our purposes to keep things nice and simple, I've just bought the frozen broccoli, so I've measured out a half a cup here. I've also measured out approximately a quarter of a cup of corn niblets and frozen peas. Okay, so those are basically ready to go. You can use them from frozen. You don't even need to defrost them because the whole process of stir frying will heat those up and cook them. So the last thing, last vegetable before we get to our seasonings is a red pepper. So I'm going to julienne this, but first I need to wash it. Always make sure that you wash your produce before you use it. Thinking about how many people have touched that produce before you. Okay, and I will be giving you about a quarter or about a third of a pepper tomorrow. So you'll get something like this that's already clean on your trays tomorrow. So you'll get something like this. Okay, and all we're going to do is take it and do a very thin slice this direction. You can do longer strips, okay, but I like about this size. So again, pinching our knives, move this out of the way so you can see. Okay, pinching our knives using our cloth, and I always like to do it skin side down. And you're just going to go through and do nice thin slices of your pepper. Okay, just basically like that. So that is a nice, simple julienne. Okay, so I'm just going to finish that. Again, keeping that claw and that thumb away from the blade of your knife. Okay, that is done. Oh, and I can add my broccoli in here. I can add my corn in here. And my peas. Okay. So next I want to get my ginger and garlic cut up. So I'm going to do the ginger first. So this is basically what ginger comes like. It's a root vegetable, and it is a very pungent root. I love it. I actually use ginger in almost everything now. Like that's any kind of Asian style that I'm making. So stir fries, I actually use it in my smoothies. It's really good for your stomach. So if you ever have a stomach ache, ginger tea is awesome. I actually drink like a lemon ginger tea most nights. So I'm just going to pull off a piece here and just cut off a chunk. So you'll get something like this on your trays. And then what you want to do is you want to peel this. So I like to use a paring knife. You can actually use, I've seen people do it, you just take like a teaspoon and you can actually just scrape it off. Okay, actually, yeah, that works pretty well too. So you can just scrape off that skin. Okay, but I like to use a paring knife, so whichever you're more comfortable with. So I'm just going to do like this. Peel off that skin and any bumps and bruises and dark bits. And with ginger, you don't need a huge amount because it is very, like I said, it's very pungent. So it has a lot of flavor, a lot of kick. I like a lot of ginger, but if you are not sure about it, you can always add just a little bit less. Okay, I'm going to throw out all of those peels. Okay, and then this is where we're going to mince. Okay, so I'm just going to take this chunk of ginger and I'm just going to cut it into strips. Okay, so I have it kind of into strips like this. And then I'm going to cut it lengthwise again, so that I have nice thin pieces. Okay, basically like little matchsticks, like that. Okay, and then I'm going to turn it and cut it the other direction. Okay, make sure I get it all in there. Now when it gets close to the end, what you can start doing is your cross chop. So this is where you put your hand flat on the top of the knife and you just go over it, bring it back in. Okay, scrape it off the knife carefully. Okay, and then over it again until they're all a uniform kind of size. Okay, like so. I'm going to set that aside because I'm not going to quite add it yet. I'm going to start my vegetables first and then I'll add the seasonings. Okay, the last thing we need to cut is our garlic. So if your garlic has, and you can't get this like papery stuff off of it, the easiest way to do it is just cut off kind of the little root end. Okay, throw that out. And then you take the garlic clove, put it on its side, put your knife on top, and carefully smash it, just like that. Okay, you'll feel it kind of crack, and then guess what? The paper comes off perfectly. Okay, that's a good trick. And then you're going to basically do the same with the garlic that you did with the ginger. So I don't like touching garlic because my fingers smell like garlic for like days afterwards. Some people, it does. Like my husband can touch garlic and it goes away like right away. But for some reason, my fingers absorb the smell. So I like to not touch it. So I like to just use a fork. So I'm just going to slice it down one direction. Get that paper out of there. Okay, and then now I can work on my cross chop and mince it nice and small. Again, bringing it in and doing the cross chop, making sure that you get all the larger pieces. Okay, so that is all the cutting that we need to do. And while I get my pan preheated, I'm going to get my seasonings or my sauce ready. So I'm going to open up my recipe. Okay, so I'm going to get this on so that my pan is preheating. So I've got the nice large surface here with my nice large pan. You guys will use a similar one. Mine's just a different color. Okay, and I'm going to get my sauce. So my sauce consists of 4 ingredients. 3 we're going to mix ahead of time. Actually, I shouldn't put it on there because that was warm. 3 I'm going to mix ahead of time, and then 1 we're going to add to the vegetables later on, which is the chicken stock. So I'm going to just leave that over here for now. I'm going to take my liquid measuring cup, and we are going to add, 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. Okay, right in there. Soy sauce is very salty. Okay, this one is actually the less sodium one, and still in 1 tablespoon you have 520 milligrams of sodium. So in a day, the average person should be consuming a maximum of about 2,000 milligrams. So 1 tablespoon of this is about 1/4 of your daily intake, which is a lot. Okay, the regular stuff, it would probably be more like 750. So soy sauce, you definitely want to be careful with and not consume too much of it. Okay, the next thing we're going to add is this thing called medium garlic sauce. Okay, this is a marinade. It's a very liquidy sauce. I have fallen in love with the sauce. My cousin introduced this sauce to me, and it has just this wonderful kind of like sweet teriyaki, soy saucy kind of flavor, and I just love it. It adds like a really nice sweetness to it without being overly sweet. And even though it's called medium garlic sauce, and you can see there's chunks of garlic in it, I don't find it's overly garlicky, if that makes sense. So we need about 1 tablespoon of this. Okay, I'm going to just measure it out carefully. You know what, maybe I'll use, I have a 1/2 tablespoon measure. so this one is a half. I wonder if that fits. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. So I'll just do 2 half tablespoons. Okay. And then the last thing we're going to add to this is cornstarch. Okay, cornstarch is really great because what it will do is it will make this sauce from this very liquidy sauce into a nice kind of silky, thicker sauce on your in your stir fries. Okay, I'm going to cut this open so it doesn't go everywhere. So we need 2 teaspoons of this. So I've got my teaspoon here, and you can just brush off the excess with your finger if it is clean. So cornstarch is something that often, you'll see maybe your parents using to thicken like a gravy or something along those lines. Okay, I'm going to check my pan here. Yeah, it's feeling nice and hot. I'm just going to turn it down a little bit. So before I mix that, I'm going to get started with my vegetables. So we need our vegetable oil. Okay, we need about a tablespoon. I'm just going to eyeball it. Okay, and be careful here. Don't burn yourselves. Okay, so don't splash it in. You're just going to gently add it to your pans. Okay, and now we can put it back on the heat. So I just usually like to use a wooden spoon to mix it up. And they call it a stir fry because you stir it often. If you would like to attempt, okay, if you guys are experienced at all with, using a frying pan, you can practice doing the flip. Okay, so like chefs, you see them doing this. Okay, basically what it is you take the pan, you're going to get your veggies kind of at the front, and you're going to flick it upwards and bring it back in. The best way to practice this is if you get just a regular pan that's not hot, okay, just like this, and pour some just dry rice into the pan, okay, then you can just practice the actual movement with the rice, okay, rather than it being hot. Okay, so we want to keep that on a fairly high temperature because stir fries are cooked usually in a wok, which is kind of like a bowl-shaped pan with a central heat kind of at the bottom. Okay, so we want to keep this moving and keep it at a high heat. It's supposed to cook quickly. And once it's about halfway done, I would recommend then you can add your ginger and your garlic. Garlic burns very quickly, so you don't want to add it too soon. Okay, I'm going to mix up my sauce mixture. Your cornstarch might float to the bottom a little bit, and that's fine. You can just scrape it. Get that all mixed in, and you'll need to mix it again before you add it to your stir fries because it will separate again. Okay, and I think that I just have to wait for the veggies to caramelize, so it takes about 5 to 7 minutes. And this is the perfect amount for one person. So usually if I'm going to make a stir fry at home, and I want leftovers, I would probably do maybe even 4 times the amount of this. So I would quadruple this recipe, especially if you want to make it for your family, and that's kind of the main dish. The other nice thing about this dish is because this is kind of like the bulk of your meal, you can just add a little bit of protein to it to kind of kick it up a notch and make it a little bit even more filling. So you could add some cooked chicken breast, you could add some pork, you could barbecue some shrimp, right? Whatever you kind of like. If you want to make some salmon, right, and put it on top. It's a really versatile mixture that you can kind of put in whatever you like. Okay, they're starting to caramelize. My broccoli is defrosting. The broccoli will probably take one of the longest to cook just because it's a bigger piece and it was frozen. But again, you can use fresh broccoli. Okay, I'm probably going to add my ginger now. And I like a lot of ginger. You probably won't have quite this much tomorrow. You might not want that much, and that's fine. But I love it. Whoopsies. Okay, we can actually check on our rice now. It should be done. You just take your lid off and give it a nice stir, and it's done. It's ready. I just like to keep the lid on while I wait to make sure that it doesn't dry out. Okay, this is getting there. I'm going to add some of the garlic. I don't love garlic, so I'm going to add a little less. And then while I wait, I can just get myself cleaned up. Oops, I still needed that spoon. Oh well. So just bring all of my dishes over. Remember, don't put your knives in the sink, okay, or the peelers. Just put them beside. Okay, and I don't need this anymore. I will still need my chicken stock. I can put my veggies away. I will wrap these up for tomorrow. And you can use your paper towel to clean up your counter. Okay, so my veggies are starting to look nice and caramelized. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add the chicken stock. So it calls for 1/4 cup, and I love these like little Tetra Packs. I usually get the Campbell's one. So you just need a little bit of liquid. You could probably even do a little less, because you don't need a lot. It adds flavor, and it just helps to kind of finish cooking the vegetables. Okay, so that basically evaporates very quickly. And then the last thing I'm going to do is make a well in the middle of my veggies. So that basically means make a hole. I'm going to turn the heat down just a little bit. Stir up my mixture, okay, and then make sure, so you make a well so there's no veggies in the middle, because you want to just kind of put this in the middle and stir it for a moment. Oh wow, that went really quick. My pan was a little warm. So normally if your pan's not too hot, that won't solidify quite as quickly. I think I'm going to add a little more chicken stock to just make this a little bit more of a thicker sauce. So maybe tomorrow what we'll do, and you guys can make note of this. Can you guys edit your recipes or no? I don't think so. So I'll remind you guys tomorrow. Maybe what we can do is instead of 2 teaspoons of cornstarch, we'll just do 1. It's always hard taking, this is a recipe that I usually use. It's always hard kind of taking it down a little bit. So I just want it to be a little bit more of a sauce. But it was too much cornstarch. But that's okay. Nobody is perfect. Even though I cook lots, I still make little mistakes. Okay, there we go. Now it's looking like a nice sauce. Okay, and now we're done. So if you guys can see, and hopefully you guys can see in the camera, okay, I'll hold it up a little bit. Okay, we have a nice kind of thick, glossy sauce on our stir fry. And then when we pour it on top of the rice, all that kind of sauce will kind of meld into the rice, and you'll have a really nice stir fry. Okay, so that is everything. So let me stop the recording.